Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply flows through a narrow channel between Iran and Oman.
This vital maritime passage is known as the Strait of Hormuz, a critical bottleneck for global energy markets. At its narrowest point, this global energy lifeline squeezes through a corridor just 21 miles wide. However, the actual shipping lanes are even more restricted, measuring only 2 miles wide in each direction. This narrow corridor transports tens of millions of barrels of oil every single day, making it a critical point for global trade. If anything disrupts the Strait of Hormuz, the entire global economy would feel the impact almost immediately.
Recent tensions in the region have reminded the world just how fragile this vital energy choke point really is.
Insurance premiums for oil tankers surge, and shipping companies prepare contingency plans for potential blockades or military confrontations.
This narrow corridor transports tens of millions of barrels of oil every single day, making it a critical point for global trade. It is one of the few places on Earth where a single miscalculation could ignite a much wider conflict. The strait is not officially closed, but the constant threat of disruption is enough to send global energy markets into panic. This panic translates into higher fuel prices, rising transportation costs, and more expensive goods on store shelves worldwide.
The economic consequences are felt from New York to Tokyo, raising a fascinating question about alternative routes. What if ships didn't have to pass through the Strait of Hormuz at all? For decades, engineers have discussed a radical idea, a massive canal cutting through the mountains of Oman's Musandam Peninsula. This would allow ships to bypass the strait entirely, creating a direct path to the open ocean. To understand the canal idea, we must first look at the geography of the Persian Gulf, home to the world's largest oil producers. Almost every tanker leaving these countries must pass through a single exit point, the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil move through this corridor every day, representing about 1/5 of global oil consumption.
Unlike other trade routes, there are very few alternatives, making this choke point economically vital.
Some countries have tried to reduce their dependence on the strait by building pipelines to the Red Sea or the port of Fujairah. However, these pipelines only carry a fraction of the oil that normally travels by tanker, leaving the global economy still dependent on the strait. This dependency makes engineers uncomfortable because choke points concentrate risk, and few are as sensitive as this one. Look at the map again. At the northern tip of Oman lies the Musandam Peninsula, a rugged piece of land stretching into the strait. In several places, the distance between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman is surprisingly short, only a few dozen miles. This raises an obvious idea. Why not dig a canal straight through the peninsula to bypass the strait entirely?
But the terrain tells a very different story. The peninsula is not a flat desert. It's part of the Hajar Mountains.
These are some of the most rugged landscapes in the Middle East, with limestone peaks rising dramatically from the coastline. Some mountains here climb more than 2,000 meters above sea level, making any canal project incredibly difficult. Building a canal here wouldn't mean just dredging sand. It would mean cutting through entire mountains and reshaping the landscape. Modern oil tankers are among the largest ships ever built, requiring a canal that is deep, wide, and stable. The excavation required would be staggering, with millions of tons of rock needing to be blasted, cut, and removed.
The environmental impact would be enormous, and the cost could potentially reach hundreds of billions of dollars.
To put that in perspective, even the massive Panama Canal expansion cost around $5 billion.
A Musandam Canal would dwarf that. But engineering is only half the challenge in this region. Even if the technical challenges could be solved, another obstacle immediately appears: politics.
The Musandam Peninsula belongs to Oman, and as of today, there is no official plan to build a canal here.
Oman's development strategy for the region focuses on tourism, ports, and regional infrastructure, not carving a shipping corridor. A project of this scale would require extraordinary international cooperation, massive investment, and long-term security guarantees. Because there is another uncomfortable truth. A canal would not eliminate vulnerability. It would simply move the choke point. Instead of the Strait of Hormuz, global oil flows would depend on a single artificial canal.
As the massive ship navigates the bustling port, the sound of heavy machinery echoes, orchestrating the flow of goods across the globe. The global economy would simply trade one bottleneck for another, and the risks would remain fundamentally the same.
So why does the idea keep coming back? Because it reveals something deeper about how the modern world works. Global trade depends on geography, and a handful of corridors quietly keep the global economy moving every day. For centuries, these natural choke points have shaped the flow of energy, goods, and power across the planet.
The Musandam Canal represents a dream, a way to redesign geography itself and remove one of the world's most fragile bottlenecks.
But reality is stubborn. Mountains are difficult to move, and politics are even harder to navigate. Global trade depends on geography, and a handful of corridors quietly keep the global economy moving every day. As long as the world depends on it, the idea of a canal through Musandam will continue to capture the imagination of engineers.
It reminds us just how fragile our global trade system really is, and how much we rely on a few key locations. We are connected by these narrow passages, and their stability defines our modern economic existence.
In this moment of dusk, the world holds its breath. The waves continue their endless journey towards the shore.
It is a reminder that even in a world of advanced technology, nature still dictates the terms of our survival.
The mountains of the Musandam Peninsula stand as a silent guardian, challenging our plans and reminding us of their scale.
The flow of oil is the lifeblood of the global economy, and it is concentrated in this one narrow point.
Geography is destiny, and for the foreseeable future, the Strait of Hormuz will remain the center of the world.
Perhaps one day, technology will catch up to our ambitions, and the canal will become a reality. Until then, we must manage the risks and maintain the delicate balance that keeps our world moving. But reality is stubborn. Mountains are difficult to move, and politics are even harder to navigate.